Thank you everybody for coming to our Why We Drink on Purim shir. So if I say you're not allowed to, or that we don't drink on Purim, what's going to happen? No? I posted on the halacha WhatsApp group, so we have to go through the halacha a little bit also, but it's mostly not going to be halacha.
If you say we're not allowed to drink, then next week
no one's going to be here. No one's going to be here, don't worry. Next week we're going to practice the drinking. Just got to practice. I was always told that why do people get in accidents when they drink and drive? Because they don't practice. Because they don't practice. You never know.
You're not allowed to practice.
You never know. I mean, don't try that. That's not a sock, but try Haba. How's it going? Okay. So tonight we're going to be learning a piece from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. If anyone's ever seen, that's like the most recent Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rebbe, he has a sefer called the Kutei Sichot. Does anyone know the difference between a sicha and a mimer? No Chabadsters here? Okay. A mimer is when the Rebbe speaks for like 5 hours straight. And a sicha is nice and short, so that's why. Tonight we'll do something nice and short. So don't worry, it's not a mimer. Is that? Only 2 hours. Only 2 hours. But we're going to discuss a mimer of the Rebbe, and it's a sikh of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe is really speaking about the source for drinking on Purim. The source for drinking on Purim, which is the Gemara in Maseches Megillah. And he starts by quoting the Gemara, and really this Gemara is the beginning of all the halachic discussions on drinking on Purim, but hidden within the Gemara is also going to be the pneumius of understanding why we drink and what is the ultimate goal of the drinking on Purim, which is different than the drinking any other night of the year. Just going back to the removing the mask shiurim, that we discussed that there's certain things that we do that only connect us to Hashem if they're done at the right time. So celebrating Purim any other night of the year is the opposite of a mitzvah. But on Purim itself, it can do something special. It can unlock something that's inaccessible for the entire year inside of a person. If he does it any other night, so don't say that, like alcohol is a way to attach myself to this or to that. It's not true the rest of the year in the same way. There is a certain truth we're going to see that drinking does enhance a person's spiritual connection in a certain way. But adol yada, but drinking until you lose yourself, that's only one day of the year, only under the right circumstances, in the right environment, and with the right kavanas in mind. So that's what we're going to try to hopefully construct tonight and understand what is the goal of the drinking on Purim and how it can be accomplished and how it can not be accomplished if done in the wrong way. Okay, so the Gemara is really the source of the whole halacha, and everybody's familiar with this Gemara, hopefully. Amarava, Mechayiv inish lebesume bepuria adel yada bein ar haman lebarach mordechai. So simply it means that a person is chayiv, he's obligated to be ibsum. So what does ibsum mean? So ibsum comes from the word besamim. It sounds like ibsum could mean, someone can become fragrant. But Rashi says, no, don't worry, you don't have to spray on a lot of cologne. It's lishtaker b'yayin, to become drunk with wine. That's what Rashi says. It means to become drunk. Until he doesn't know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. Okay, so right after that, the Gemara brings a very fascinating story. And the Gemara says, Rabba Rabbi Zera avdu sudas Purim b'hadei hadadei. So Rabba and Rabbi Zera did a Purim Suda together. Ibsum, so again, what does that mean, Ibsum? They got drunk, they got fragrant. So Kam Rabba Shachtia Rabbi Zera. So Rabba got up and said, Rabbi Zera, do you want to see my samurai sword collection? And Rabbi Zera said, for sure, of course I do. So he took him to go check it out, and it doesn't say anything about samurai swords, but Shachti Rabbi Zera. Rabba got up and shechted Rabbi Zera. That's what it says. L'machar bai rachmei v'achyei. So the next day, Rabba wakes up like, oh my gosh, what did I do to Rabbi Zera? So he davens, by rachmei, he asks for rachamim, v'achyei, and he revived him. He brought him back to life. L'shana amar le nisi mar v'navi sudas purim b'hadei adadei. So Rabba sees Rabbi Zera next year, and now hopefully they're talking again, and he says, Rabbi Zera, we had a great time last year. Should we join forces again for Suda this year? And what does Rabbi Zera answer him? Amar le, Rabbi Zera says back, Lo b'chol shaita v'shaita mitrachish nisa. We can't rely on miracles every time. So, with all the respect, I think I'll stay at home. Okay, fine. That's the story in the Gemara. Okay, so fine. Maybe it's all a metaphor, right? Sometimes we hear stories like this in the Gemara, and we say, "Come on, it didn't mean it. It wasn't literal. They're not serious." But here, you're not allowed to do that. Why are you not allowed to do that? So, right? Anyone who learns Gemara, why can you not do that here? How do we start this daf of Gemara? With a halacha. When the Gemara is trying to prove or disprove a halacha, which has practical ramifications, it cannot bring a metaphor to prove a halacha. That's not how you prove halachas. Halachas are practical applications. They have nafkaminas, they're real. The Gemara is trying to prove that a person is obligated on Purim to drink until he doesn't know the difference between Ar Haman and Baruch Mordechai. And then it brings this story. So in general, if you hit a random piece of Agadata anywhere in the Gemara, especially if it's coming off of a machshava discussion, or a discussion about philosophy, or midos, or something like that, so then you could say it's coming to bring a metaphorical idea. Here, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do it in the Gemara. So much so that some should know that it's a machlokes rishonim if we paskin that a person is chayev to be drunk on Purim ad yada. Because Rabbeinu Ephraim, who's brought in the Ran and the Baal Ma'or, says that you know what this story is actually doing? It's contradicting the halacha. It's telling you we don't paskin like that. Because look what happens when you get too drunk. You end up killing your friend.
Every time.
Every time. That's how he actually learns this story in the Gemara. So first of all, we see from Beinu Ephraim that he takes this story very literally. So literally that it actually contradicts the halacha, and he paskins not like this halacha. The Shulchan Aruch and the majority of Rishonim paskin that this story is coming to prove that we do hold like the halacha, because you see that Rabbi and Rabbi Zera did drink ad yada, and okay, at the end of the day, nothing happened because Rabbi was able to revive Rabbi Zera. So, no big deal. That's how they learned this Gemara. But we still have to understand, is the Gemara literally telling us that Rabba got up and killed Rabbi Zera? Is that fitting for a person like Rabba? Rabba in the Gemara, lo pasak pume megirsa. He literally never stopped speaking Torah his entire life. Never stopped one moment from speaking Torah. It says lo pasak pume megirsa. He didn't stop speaking Torah once. The Tanya, in the beginning of the Tanya, when it goes through what's this level of Beinoni, of a person that literally never sins, sometimes he might have the Havamina to do a sin, but he never actually sins in a mitzvahs aseh and a lo taseh, so what we would call the perfect tzaddik, although the Tanya has a higher level than that. He says that was Rabbah. Rabbah, and the Gemara says that he was on this level. So there's a person like that, and we're going to think that he got drunk and accidentally or intentionally killed his friend. So it's very, very strange. The Chassam Sofer actually says on this Gemara, he makes sense. He says because another Gemara says that someone who's born under the Mazel Ma'adim, who's born under, what they say is Mars, under the Mazel of Mars, so he will actually be a Shofech Damim. He'll have the desire to spill blood. And either he'll become a murderer or a moel or a shochet or a surgeon today. Yeah. Either he'll have to become one of those. He'll have some sort of bloodlust, and he'll have to fulfill it and channel it in the right direction, or it'll go in the wrong direction. So Rabbah got up after this Gemara. It says Kam Rabbah, and he says that he was born under the Mazel Ma'adim. So Chassam Sofer says, you see, the Gemara is like lined up nicely that he shechted someone. Okay, that's very strange, because that's implying that he actually killed someone with a sword, or he actually shechted him.
This Rabbi himself is quoting the story, is saying the story, or somebody else?
The Gemara is saying the story.
So it's not Rabbi himself.
The Gemara is saying Rabbi is just telling a story like a narrator.
This is Rabbi Baba Chana?
No, this is Rabba. No, Rabba. Rabba from Abayi and Rava's teacher of Abayi and Rava. So that's Rabba. Yeah. So this is the story. So there are poskim that say, like the Marsha says, he didn't really kill him. He just forced him to drink so much that he got sick and fainted, passed out. That's what it means. He killed him. That's still not very nice, right? This isn't college hazing. You're not supposed to force people to drink until they pass out. So that's also a very difficult pshat. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe wants to understand what's pshat in this Gemara. How can we understand the story in a literal sense? Because again, you're not allowed to take any of it metaphorically, or purely metaphorically, because it's proving a practical halacha. But at the same time, we have to understand that Rabbah was a tzaddik that we can't even understand. We can't even believe this level of this person. Like imagine you heard this story about Rav Chaim Kanievsky, or about Rav Yashiv, or about any of these big tzaddikim, and you heard this story. Would you believe that it was kipshuto, like the simple reading, like that's how it happened? Of course not. So imagine someone on an infinitely higher level. You can't fathom who Rabbah was. So of course you can't understand that he literally just killed someone because he got too drunk. Okay, so what's it trying to tell us? How do we understand this? So Babich Rebbe says the key to understanding this Gemara is to understand a different event that took place in the Torah itself. In the Chumash, we have two big tzaddikim that drank wine and got burned. Who were they? Who? Noach, but Nadav and Avihu specifically. We're looking for Nadav and Avihu here. Got burned. Noach, yeah, something like that. Nadav and Avihu got burned. So he says, what was pshat in Nadav and Avihu? So after Nadav and Avihu die, so Moshe says to Aaron, "Bekrovai akadesh." That's what Moshe says to Aaron in the pasuk. So Rashi says, what was he telling Aaron? He says that I knew that some tzaddik was going to have to die at the Hakamas of Mishkan, which is weird why a tzaddik had to die, but that's maybe for another time. Maybe we'll get to it at the end. But he said someone had to die when we established the Mishkan. Had to take one for the team to prove the high level of kedusha that the Mishkan had within it, and to instill Yirah Shamayim in the people that were going to gather around it. And he said that I thought it was going to be me and you, Aaron, but now I see that Nadav and Avihu were on a higher level than you and I. That's what Rashi brings from Chazal. So Moshe said after Nadav and Avihu died that they were on a higher level than himself and Aaron. That's a very, very intense level of kedusha to be on, especially when it says. The next pasuk after they died says that you can't go in to the kodesh, you can't do the avoda b'shtuya yayin. You can't go in when you're drunk. So Chazal learned from that Nadav and Avihu went into the kodesh hakadoshim drunk after they had drunk wine, and they tried to bring a korban, an eshzar that was not commanded, and that's why they died. Okay. So another very strange story that on the simple level it sounds like two tzaddikim got drunk, said, "Hey, what do you want to do now? Let's go bring a korban," and they stumbled into the kodesh hakadoshim. They brought a korban and fire came down and took out their neshamas. That's what the story sounds like. But then Moshe Rabbeinu says, this was no mistake. These people were holier than you and I. It's a very, very special level. And again, they were drinking wine. And it sounds like something very, very out of character. So the Rebbe really is not explaining this himself. He brings the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says that Nadav and Avihu did not die as a punishment. They died as a natural cause and effect of what they were actually trying to accomplish. And he says that when Rabbi Akiva, Ben Zoma, Ben Azai, and Acher went into Pardes, so not all of them were Nichnas B'Shalom V'Yatza B'Shalom. Only Rabbi Akiva went in and came out okay. Right? Acher went off the derech, Ben Zoma died, and Ben Azai lost his mind. Okay, so Ben Zoma died. So what does it mean he died? So why did he die? So the Orach Chaim explains he died because he went so close to Hashem that you have to imagine that Hashem is like this unbelievable magnet, and your neshama is like a little piece of metal. And when you get too close, that neshama so much wants to connect to Hashem, it so much wants to leap out of your body that it just shoots right out. And it's not easy to pull it back in. The person really has to try to pull it back in. When did this happen to the whole Jewish people? So that's Har Sinai. At Har Sinai wasn't that Hashem just spoke and blasted us backwards. He revealed such a high level of his ratzon and who Hashem is that our neshamas leapt out of our bodies and just connected themselves to Hashem. So this is called in the Sfarim kalus hanefesh. That when a tzaddik gets so close to Hashem, his longing for Hashem gets so intense that his neshama can literally leap out of his body and just go straight up to Hashem. Hashem doesn't want that. In fact, I forget which Rebbe it was, but it was before the Mitla Rebbe. I think it was the Rebbe Rashab. That when he used to give over Maimers, which are the 3-hour Divrei Torah, so Maimer used to go very, very deep. Again, 3 hours. It went very, very deep into very deep Kabbalistic Inyanim, and he used to hold a towel in his hand. He used to always be rubbing it, the entire Sikha. And they asked him why he did that, and he said, because I try not to have kalas nefesh. He said one time that he disconnected so much from the physicality that his neshama almost left his body. He felt that he was going to die because he was so deep in his Torah learning. So he tries to keep himself grounded and keep himself aware of his physical presence by rubbing this towel and keeping it in his hands the whole time. So it's a real, I mean, we don't have to worry about it, but it hasn't happened to me ever. But yeah, someday. But there's tzaddikim that they can delve so deeply that there's a risk of the neshama leaving their body. Now that's not a good thing, because Rabbi Akiva was the only one that was praised that was nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom. Because Hashem wants in this world neshama beguf. He wants your neshama to stay in your body. He has enough angels up there that are just flying around attached to him. He wants you down here. But it is possible for someone to get so close to Hashem that his neshama leaves his body. Now, what does that have to do with wine? So the Gemara says, Nichnas yayin yatsa sod. So that can be understood in two ways. In the coarse way, it means the way that we see it with the majority of the population of the world, is that you drink wine, you just start spewing whatever you think without a filter. Like Nichnas yayin, so now I'll tell you how I really feel. Like Mel Gibson gets drunk, so he just suddenly becomes anti-Semitic and just spewing things about the Jews. My mom once asked me, I think she never got drunk, maybe, and she asked, like, does he really think that, or was he just drunk? I'm like, no, if you're drunk and you start spewing that, that's what he really thinks. That's what he, and the rest of the time, he's just like trying to cover it up, but that's what he really thinks. Because nichnas yayin yatsa sod. But for a tzaddik, it's not his personal secrets that come out. He doesn't have any personal secrets. It's nichnas yayin. So what's yotze is the sodos of Torah. When a tzaddik drinks, gather round, because the Torah just starts flowing, and he can go into a very, very deep place. The Shla says that we see times in the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva drank many, many cups of wine at his son's wedding, and he started saying over Divrei Torah, that when a tzaddik drinks to an extent where he actually becomes drunk, so what he's really doing is he's dulling out his physical senses, so that his neshama can shine through in a way that he couldn't do otherwise. And wine has this special segula that it releases that sod, those sodei Torah. So when they try to elevate to this higher plane of existence, and they try to kind of leave their bodies behind, with hopefully without leaving the body completely, so they drink wine. That's nichnas yayin, that the wine goes in, the soda, the secrets come out. So that's what Nadav and Avihu were doing, right? When they drank the wine, they were delving into the sodos of Torah. Now again, they really drank wine. They really did get drunk, but they weren't going in there to have a party. They were going in there to delve into the deepest secrets of Torah and to connect themselves to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, to the Kruvim, to the Aron, right? That's where the Torah emanates from. So that's what they were trying to do. And what was their mistake? So again, you fly too close to the sun, you can get burned. That's what happened. They got too close to the sun. In fact, the pasuk says, "Be'kirvasam el Hashem," that they died when they came too close to Hashem. That was the problem, that they got too close. And if you do it without the proper guidance, without a Rabbi Akiva that understands how to keep his neshama in his body, so that could be the ultimate result. So that's Orach Chaim HaKadosh. So the Rebbe says the same exact thing can be applied to what happened in the story here. And you can actually learn it within the words themselves. Okay, so this is how he explains it. So you have Rabbah and you have Rabbi Zera. So Rabbah, what does Rabbah mean literally? Very big. Expansive, big, large, right? What does Zera mean? Zeir, small. That's very interesting, right? The names, Rabbah and Zera. Right? One is big and one is small. So Rabbah wanted to take Rabbi Zera on a ride. He wanted to take him into levels of Torah that he'd never been to before. That was the goal. So Ibsum. That's why they drink. That's why these tzaddikim drink. Okay? Then Kam Rabbah. So Rabbah elevated. Kam Rabbah means Rabbah got up. So Rabbah went up, and he tried to bring Rabbi Zera with him. He didn't realize that Rabbi Zera, as his name implies, was not capable of entering into the same expansiveness of consciousness that Rabbah could handle. So Rabbah goes up, v'shechti Rabbi Zera, and he shechted it. So the Gemara says, ein v'shachat ela u'mashach. The Gemara says that when it says shachat, when it says that you shech something, mashach, it means you draw it up. You elevate it, you draw it up. What does it mean that you elevate it? So the Gemara explains that when you kill an animal, so you're actually elevating the animal. In halacha, why are you allowed to kill an animal? It's tzar ba'alei chayim. It's an issur d'oraisa, right? How are you allowed to kill an animal to eat it? So the answer is because the animal also, to a certain extent, wants to be shechted. It's willing to forego that pain because it has the ability to become elevated. Because when you shecht it, I tell my son all the time, an animal wants nothing more than to be shechted as a karma, or to end up on your Shabbos table, right? Animals can be eaten by a random non-Jew that uses whatever energy he gets from that animal, could go do averas all day long, right? That is what the animals, right? We spoke about removing the mask here for seven-part series to explain that every physical object in the world has a spark of kedusha that sustains it. Now, every single thing in the world's dream is to be utilized by a tzaddik in the service of Hashem. That's its dream. Whether it consciously knows it or not, okay, I don't know if you can ask the animal, but that's what its neshama wants of every animal, for sure. To end up on a Jewish Shabbos table is quite the honor, right? What happens when you eat that food? So first of all, the eating is a mitzvah. The bracha already elevates the animal. What happens when you ingest that animal? Your body actually sucks the life force out of that out of that physical object, which is the neshama of the object, and it converts that food into dam. This is what the Gemara says. It converts it into blood. It becomes a part of you. You absorb that food, and like literally physically, you absorb the nutrients into your body, and they become human. It goes from animal to human. That's what's happening when you eat this animal. And not only that, but the animal probably ate some plant life. So you're taking the sparks that were in the plants that went into the animal, that got absorbed into the animal, everything, it's like a chain of elevation, right? The plant sucks up the minerals. So you take domem is the lowest form of life, mineral life. Sucks up the minerals into the plant, that's tomeach, that's plant life. Plant life gets ingested by animals, sucked up into the animals, it becomes chai, that becomes, right, animal life, animated life. Then you eat the animal, and you suck up that animal, it becomes medaber, it elevates into the human form. And the life force that's in it, that has the domem, that has the chai, that has the tzomeach, and has the chai, all those pieces get elevated into the human form. Now, you have the energy, or the life force of that animal in your body. Now, what are you going to do with it? So if you go and do mitzvahs, if you do avodas Hashem, there's no higher elevation for that animal, and for that plant, and for that mineral. That's the essence of taking those sparks of kedusha and elevating them up to Hashem. Is you use the energy that you receive for avodas Hashem. So that's what it means when you shecht an animal, you're elevating the animal. You're elevating it to a new plane of existence, from a chai, from an animal life, to medaber, to human life. And it has the ability to go to places it couldn't have gone on its own, right? The animal can't get there if you don't eat it. You have to eat it. So he wants to get eaten by a Jew on Shabbos, and then the Jew does a mitzvah, nothing better. Okay, so that's what he wants to happen. So when it says kam Rabba v'shechti Reb Zera, it means that Rabba elevated, right? And shechti Reb Zera, and Reb Zera, he tried to bring Reb Zera with him to elevate it. Reb Zera, like the animal, has to die to convert itself into human form. It has to go through a shechita to elevate itself. That's what happened to Reb Zera. He got shechted. Reb Zera literally died. He literally died. But what did he die? He had the kalas nefesh. His neshama left his body, and he elevated almost to an angelic form. Right? He elevated to a place where his neshama couldn't exist within his guf anymore, and it left his body. So kam Rabbi shechti Reb Zera. That's how Rabbi went up, and he tried to bring Reb Zera with him. Reb Zera couldn't handle it, and Reb Zera elevated too high for his body to handle. And he went to the next level. Okay, so what happened? So umachar boy rachme v'achye. So the next day, Rabba davens and revives Rabbi Zera. And then he says, Rabbi Zera, let's do it again next year. So the Rebbe asked before, like, how is he going to ask him to do it again next year? In the simple understanding, he just killed him. He shechted him. He's going to ask him next year, but according to our understanding, it makes a lot of sense. He says, Rabbi Zera, that was amazing. Do you remember last Purim? Right? You got to go all the way up, and we brought you right back down. So let's do it again. So Rabbi Zera says, no. Lo kol shaita misracha shalanes. We can't rely on miracles every day. So what do you think the miracle is? I think the miracle is that we can't rely that you're going to be able to revive me every Motzei Purim. Yeah, who knows? Maybe you're not going to be able to do it. So that can't be. The Gemara says every Amora and Tana mentioned in the Gemara was capable of doing Tchiyas HaMeisim. It wasn't a big deal. Rabbah doing Tchiyas HaMeisim to Rizera was not so impressive. It's Rabbah, right? You think it's impressive, but it's Rabbah. Rabbah can do that. What was the miracle that Rizera was talking about? What?
That he went up that close to Hashem?
No, that evidently Kolas HaNefesh is possible. I mean, Rabbah took him there. It wasn't amazing that Rabbah took him there. Rabbah can take him up. He's Rabbah. He's a big one. Right? What was the miracle? The miracle, not that he brought him down, but that Rabbi Zera was willing to come back down. Right? That was the miracle. When the magnet, when you get, when the magnets are connected and you get to go all the way to the source, you do not want to come back down. The Gemara says that Hashem has to force the neshama to go down into the guf. The neshama does not want to go into the guf. It's basking up there in the ziva shechina, in the olam ha'emes. You think it wants to come down to olam ha'sheker and be limited into this physical, disgusting body? No, the neshama doesn't want to go down. So Hashem says you're born against your will and you're going to die against your will. You have to go down because you have a mission. So he has to send him down. So Rabbi Zera said, we can't rely on a miracle every year. Who says my neshama is going to come back down this year? Right? Nadav and Avihu didn't come back down. I mean, there was no Rabbah to bring them back, but they didn't come back down. So he says, every year we can't rely on the miracle that I'm going to come back down. So that's why we learned this lahalacha. Right? That's really, everything was literal. You can't take it figuratively. They had to drink real wine. Nichnas yain yatsa sod. Right? They elevated to a new level of understanding of connection to Hashem, and they actually shechted him. He actually died. He actually killed him. And then he actually brought him back down and brought him back to life. Okay. So that's an understanding of the Gemara and the Chiv that we have. So now the problem is, when you learn this, I can't do that. The Gemara is trying to prove a halacha for everybody. So what exactly are we supposed to do? We're not going to delve into the secrets of Torah. Okay. So now we just have to add one more layer to understanding what our job is, and not everyone is necessarily capable or fitting to fulfill their job or to take on this mission. So we'll have to add some caveats, but we'll try to understand what the goal of Adal Yada is. Adal Yada is crazy. It's a crazy concept. It says you're supposed to drink until you literally lose your kalim, right? Until you lose all intellectual thought. That's what it sounds like. I mean, the simple pashtus is that's what it sounds like. So what kind of mitzvah is that? Mitzvah is trichas kavana. We actually paskin, you have to have the right kavana to have a mitzvah. And Rav Shlomo Salanter says this mitzvah applies every second of the day from the moment you begin your suda. That you have to be at the state of Adal Yada, and every time you come down, you have a mitzvah to get back there. So it sounds like it's a very intense chiyuv that many people take a pshuta. We'll see if that's recommended for everybody, probably not. But what's the idea there? So we're about to read Parshas Zachor, and we're going to see that Klal Yisrael have a tendency to sick Amalek upon them at certain points in history. And right before Amalek comes for the very first time, so Klal Yisrael ask a question: Hayesh Hashem bekirbeinu im ayin. And then the next pasuk is Vayavo Amalek. So Amalek comes to answer this question that Klal Yisrael asked. Hayesh Hashem bekirbeinu im ayin. Is Hashem? It means literally inside of us. Bekerev, like inside of us, im ayin, or not. So they were literally just left Mitzrayim. They're not asking like, is Hashem with us or not? That's not what they're asking. Right? They were in Refidim. Refidim, Rashi says, Rafu Yedeim in Torah. They became weak from Torah. Their hands became weak that they weren't learning Torah properly. So Klal Yisrael had a question. When I'm disconnected from Torah, am I still connected to Hashem? That's the question. Hayesh Hashem birkirbeinu im ayin. Is Hashem inside of me? Am I intimately connected to Hashem in a way we call it lamala min hadas, that's above my intellectual understanding, meaning when my intellect is not involved in Torah per se. So am I still connected to Hashem or not? That was the question. And Amalek comes to answer that question. Because Amalek is really asking and injecting us with the same suffix, with the same doubt. Amalek is gematria suffix, as many of you know. So Amalek injects you with that doubt. Amalek is always when a person does a sin, or he disconnects from Torah, or he feels like Hashem doesn't like him anymore. So he says, that's it, I'm gone, I'm disconnected. I'm not connected to Torah, I'm not connected to Hashem. So you ask that question. Amalek comes and says, yeah, you're right, you're totally disconnected. That's it. Amalek believes that there is such thing as Kedusha in this world. But the Kedusha is up there. If you're connected up there, okay, you can be connected to Kedusha. The moment you disconnect from up there, the moment you're not learning Torah, so you're nothing, you're an animal. You're just like us. That's what Amalek says. You're just like us, you're disconnected. So the answer for Amalek is that a Jew is Kadosh Be'etzem, which means that a Jew is holy regardless of whether at that moment he's learning Torah. He has a level of Kedusha that's inherent within him. And to be honest, it's the highest level that a person can have. He's made B'Tselem Elokim. A person is, in some way, a representation of Hashem on this earth. If he acts the right way, if he tries to bring out that neshama that's inside of him, he's connected to Hashem in a very deep way. That's al-malam min hadas. It's much deeper than your intellectual understanding. And the way to conquer Amalek is to recognize that and to realize that a person has the ability to bring it out at any given moment. So Purim is really bringing out that connection with Hashem. Okay, now the only way to get through that connection with Hashem is you have to almost like bumpers. You have to have Torah on either side to get you there. Right? You can, when you reach the place where you're above Torah, where your intellect falls away and you're just purely connected to Hashem, trust me, if you just turn off your brain beforehand, that you're not going to get there. It's almost like Rabbi Akiva was nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom, right? The other ones went crazy, they died, they went off the derech, right? If you want to get there, you have to have a game plan. You have to have a game plan for drinking on Purim. To go to a Purim party, just like a Stam Purim party, that's with a bunch of frat people on a college campus, that just happens to be that today's Purim, but they really did it last night and a week before, and it wasn't any difference. That's not going to get a person there. That's not going to bring out the inherent kedusha that a person has within him. For sure not. Sure not. Purim is probably the most important day that if you're going to be drinking, you have to drink it in the right environment, under the right circumstances, with divrei Torah lining every inch of the way until you get to that point. Like bumpers on a bowling alley, right? To keep you on track. If a person loses track and he just has a cell phone and then he ends up on YouTube and then it just becomes like any other day. So that's not going to get you. That's not going to get you to Purim. It's definitely not going to get you to Kedusha. It's not going to get you to that place of Adol Yada. It's going to be the exact opposite. Right? Purim is probably the most dangerous day. Obviously, it's the most dangerous day on the Jewish calendar. It's probably the day that people make the worst mistakes that they can on the holiest day of the year. Yom Kippur is Yom Kippurim. Right? Yom HaKippurim is Yom Kippurim. The Zohar says it's like Purim. Purim's higher than Yom Kippur. Imagine they would do that on Yom Kippur. For sure not. But Yom Kippur, no one says to drink your face off. But the Shla and the Ramah both say that if a person cannot handle his alcohol in a way that's going to guide him to this level of Kedusha, so then not only does he not have a mitzvah to drink, it's an avera for him to drink. The drinking is going to lead him to the wrong place. It's not a mitzvah. Of course it's not a mitzvah. It's the same drinking that he does all year long, so it's not going to do anything for him. The Shla is like very, very harif about it. It says a person shouldn't drink at all. The Ramah says he should drink a little more than usual, and then he should fall asleep to be mekayim this mitzvah of Adol Yada, because when you're sleeping, you don't know the difference, because you're unconscious. So that's probably, what?
And you're closer to Hashem.
And you're closer to Hashem. It's Shishim B'Misa. It's the 60th of death. So you get a little taste of this, Shechti or Bizera, right? So you go up. But that's probably the case for the majority of people that are celebrating Purim. Is that, the Shla for sure says this. He says the Hamon Am should not be drinking the way that they do, and Purim has become a terrible day, and he's and this is the Shla, like a Kabbalist that you think is into the drinking, the Pneumius, so he's very unhappy with what he saw in his day, and he would probably be even more unhappy with what he would see today. So it really depends on where a person is and who his Su'uda is with. So again, there's many days that a person can go have fun. Purim is not just a day for fun. It's the holiest day of the year. So a person should ensure that wherever he finds himself, or make sure that he finds himself in a place where it's going to bring out the sod that's in his neshama, the good secret, not all the other ones that spew out of his mouth the rest of the year when a person drinks. But it has to be guided. And it takes a lot of seriousness to recognize the kedusha of this day.
And preparation and pre-gaming.
And preparation and pre-gaming, spiritual pre-gaming. No mitzvah to drink the night before. Another thing, right? It's not a 24-hour drunken period. Right? The mitzvah is drinking by the Suda. Right? It's mishta v'simcha. It's by the Suda. So again, there could be, there's some that say that there's a mitzvah between marbe b'suda at night a little bit. Also, that's not the mitzvah of the Suda. But okay, if someone wants a little bit of wine at night, fine. But to get drunk at night so that a person can't drink during the day is also a big mistake, because you're losing the mitzvah. Again, like we said in the moving the Mash Shirim, that if you do the avoda not at the right time, if you shake a lulav in the middle of the week, nothing happens. Nothing happens, right? So there's a little mitzvah to drink a little bit of wine at night, just to be besimcha. But if a person gets drunk at night, so it doesn't do the job. There's one day a year where when you drink in this way, your neshama shines through. As long, again, as you have the bumpers that are guiding you in the right direction, that's on Purim. It's on Purim. And a person has to make sure that he saves his drinking for that day, again, for the right circumstance, as part of the Su'uda, and has to do it in the right measure, and hopefully he does it in the right way. And this is the message of Purim, is that a person has to leave his das and ultimately recognize, and this is just the avoda on a simple level, because again, we're not going to get to Rav and Rabbi Zera. What a person should be thinking of is the overall message of Purim is that I don't know the difference between good and bad. Not like you choose good and bad, not your bechira. But things that I think are bad that happen to me could really be the best. And things that I think are good could really be the worst. Right? Esther got abducted by a non-Jewish king and was forced to sleep with her. It still is terrible. There's going to be a whole understanding of how Purim, in the end of the day, is not the happiest story. The Gadol Hador's wife got taken to live with a non-Jewish man, and it's a pretty sad story when you really think about it. But in the end of the day, Hashem was orchestrating all of that to bring about an ultimate salvation. So it looks bad, it is bad, but it's not really bad. We spoke about this another day, that the person should toast to those things in his life that he thinks are negative, that he thinks are bad, and say, Adal Yada. Right? I don't know. I don't know what's good and bad. I just have a emunah in Hashem, that Hashem is taking care of business. Hashem is guiding me in the right direction. Everything that's happening to me is part of the journey. It's all for the best. And in the end, when I get to the next world, I'm going to appreciate every single second that I was here. That's what a person is going to recognize. And on Purim, you get to live in that state. You can actually be on a level of simcha that you can't get to the rest of the year. Because the rest of the year, you're not supposed to be happy about terrible things that happen to you. You can say, I don't understand them. You shouldn't question Hashem. You're not supposed to be happy about it. On Purim, Adal Yada. Right? Arur Haman, you could say, like, Baruch Haman. You're supposed to get to a point where you accidentally say Baruch Haman. Right? Like, whoa, Baruch Haman. Baruch Hitler. I can imagine someone said that. That's inappropriate. So on Purim, somehow you have a window into Baruch Hitler. How does that make sense? It's crazy. It doesn't make sense, right? Adal Yada. Don't try to wrap your head around it. But if you drink enough and you try to recognize that Hashem is guiding every single step of history, the parts that look good, the parts that look not so good, so then you can appreciate that, and you can get to a point where you can be happy about everything. You can be happy about everything. And you don't have to be sad about anything on Purim. And that's really the ultimate truth, is that's what the true world is. However, right now Hashem wants us in this world to have Bechira, and He wants us to live according to the laws of nature, but one day a year you kind of get to slip out of that. And you get to just be B'simcha. You get to recognize that everything that Hashem does is for the best, and you get to leave your kalim. You get to leave that intellect and get to Adal Yada. So everybody is invited to my house for Purim. We're going to have hours that'll be open house, and welcome to stop by, and hopefully look forward to celebrating with you. Adal Yada. Just control yourself. What?
Fresh pets.
For sure. There's many couches. You've been to my house before.
We have the telephone numbers for AAA and Uber.
Oh yeah. Leave your keys at the door. Don't try practicing drinking and driving leading up to it. But hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, it'll be a good place to be. And if not, so make sure you're in the right environment, because it's the holiest day of the year.